Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by Bubba Myron.
Yes, on the show known for being worn by the most attractive announcer in Georgia wrestling. Our fine merchandise at ProWrestlingTees.com. Look it up there.
Absolutely. Did that shirt look any better, Myron?
Yeah, well,
It's the best I've ever seen our merch look.
I know that's
Yeah.
I couldn't have done a better job myself. And
Absolutely, man. Well, shout outs to Diana Michelle. We greatly appreciate it. We always love to see our merch out there, especially on somebody who actually promotes the show way better than we ever could.
Yes.
But speaking of promotion, this week's episode is brought to you by none other than Viral Pro Wrestling. They've been gone for a little while. They're coming back.
Glad to have you back, guys.
Absolutely glad that they're back. And check it out, man. It's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Viral Pro Wrestling returns to Thompson, Georgia on April 17, 2021, featuring action-packed, family-friendly entertainment. Your BPW superstars will compete for the chance to earn the coveted Viral Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Championship, including Timmy Lou Retton, Sean Legacy, Montana Black, John Davis, Joshua Cutshaw, Darius Lockhart, and more. Viral Pro Wrestling Undeniable. Tickets available at bpw.ticketbud.com.
Man.
Wow.
Dude,
Wow.
I agree with you, brother. I mean, it's just, look, Viral's always been a player. I mean, they've always brought in the names. They've always got some good angles going. I'm stoked to see Timmy Lou, amongst other things. Hey, but we're going to talk about Viral Pro a little more later when we get to the Georgia Indy Talk later into the show. But first, of course, as we always do, before we get to that, let's cover, obviously, the big news, right, of this whole week.
WrestleMania weekend.
It's WrestleMania week, brother, at this point. It's, by the time you're listening to all of this, obviously, the show comes out on Thursday. A lot of stuff's already going to have happened between Hall of Fame and so forth and so on, which is why we're obviously not covering Hall of Fame, because this is literally happening the night we're recording.
Yes.
Takeover, the same thing. I mean, it's the, Wednesday, third. It's like, dude, it's just boom, boom, boom all week long. But, lots of, we told you along the way down the road to WrestleMania, we're going to cover things that have changed, that have altered it a little bit. And, of course, one of the big ones, the first two big ones this week involve celebrities.
Yes.
One of them being, of course, Bad Bunny versus The Miz. Now is a tag match. And we'd kind of heard Damian Priest and, Morrison had been banged up a little bit, waiting to get them cleared to officially make it a tag match. Well, clearly that has happened. And now we have Bunny versus Miz has turned into a tag match.
Brilliant. And did you see what they did to his car? They put paint all over his Bugatti. That was funny though. I mean, I know it wasn't real paint, but it was still, that was like an old trick, destroy the man's car and get the Fury and then jump him and blah, blah, blah. Like it or not, this is WrestleMania, and WrestleMania is always packed full of celebrities to draw eyes. And this year being on the Peacock, you're going to get your Bad Bunny and you're going to get your Logan Paul, which Logan Paul in that bit with Sami Zayn was weirdly kind of creeped out. I think anybody that watched it was kind of creeped out. Sami has gone too far, and the only time I've ever really liked to see Kevin Owens come out is Kevin Owens came out and stopped the Sami Zayn rant that was horribly uncomfortable. So we've got a couple of celebrities involved. Will he be like a referee? Will he be a guest? Who knows?
Well, they're saying he's going to be Sami Zayn's guest at WrestleMania. But listen, this goes back to to WrestleMania 1, celebrities' involvement and things like that, and draw names, like I said, especially with Peacock being involved. But before we move too far along, it came out this week. I do want to. Listen, I get it. There's a lot of people giving him grief, and Bad Bunny shouldn't be on the card. Well, first of all, I want to point out that Bad Bunny's been at Raw pretty much every week.
Oh yeah,
since he's been there. So it's not like he's dropping in like once every few weeks and making an appearance and he's gone. He's gotten physical throughout the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I read somewhere this week that basically he's been at the Performance Center every day for like the last 3 or 4 months, putting in the work, trying to at least get good enough for this match alone. Now, I still think it's a smart move to put Priest and Morrison.
Yes.
You
Now
know,
that
Priest
it's a
can kind of
tag
hide him.
match,
Yeah.
it's a lot better because Morrison's a veteran. The Miz is incredibly safe. They're going to be able to work the tag and get the hot tag and get him out of there and get him out of trouble if he needs to get out, if he gets blown up. I think it's brilliant. It's going to work out a lot better now that's a tag match.
Right, because Priest can do a lot of the work and he doesn't have to be exposed and for a longer match, which is, trust me, that's, I think, a very smart move. So, again, we always say, I think the celebrity piece, I'm just used to it at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, it doesn't at all because they're trying to draw eyes and heaven forbid.
You know, they got Nita Strauss playing guitar for the takeover. They've got that. I have no idea who Bebe Rexha is singing something.
That's not our demo, dude. That goes back to what we always say. That we're not in that target demo for that. That's not.
But it works. It's going to work for whoever. And the thing is, we haven't even talked about entrances because that's what makes WrestleMania so glamorous is the entrances. And there's going to be some awesome ones with these celebrities and stuff. So, folks, look forward to it.
I agree.
It's going to be entertaining.
I do, and another thing I do find a little bit more entertaining, by the way. Let's talk a little bit about the whole. Last week discussed how Daniel Bryan's now into a triple threat match with Edge and Roman Reigns. Of course, Edge was always a better heel.
Yes.
Period. And anybody, I mean, that just, I get it when I say period. I'm like, that's my opinion, right? I've always enjoyed him, and I like it when he's a little more like this edgy, no pun intended. But that's probably where it's from, right? So I like where they're going with this, and we're going to get in some predictions here in a little bit and go over some of those. But I do like Edge, as like I said, as a heel character. Braun Strowman came out this week and dedicated the match versus Shane McMahon to people that have been bullied, called stupid in their lifetime. I want to ask you, because I want to sidebar just for a second. I know a lot of people he was getting pushback on this on Facebook. Oh, I guess that means he's going to win, or like it's a bad thing. And I'm like, well, a lot of people were talking about how like, oh, he can't be bullied because Shane's smaller than him. And I just, you know me, I'm not a big Mr. Sensitive story, whatever. But I did find it ironic that, like, so you don't think it's possible for some good-looking rich kid to be picking on a guy? Doesn't matter that he's bigger than him, but he's calling him stupid because he's big and he's slow and he's stupid, So I'm kind of like, I get it. Like the story does make sense if you let it.
Yeah, just enjoy it, folks. How else would you generate a storyline between two people over such a short period of time? Okay, and make it stick. You use the McMahon angle, which was basically this is the Shane's version of Mr. McMahon, probably the greatest heel in WWE history. You got your big guy, you got your cage match where you'd think it would favor Braun because Shane can't run, but eventually it's going to probably favor Shane because Shane can fly.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to have our Shane match. Okay. How they set it up is immaterial. We're all just going to watch this to see Shane fly.
We both agree. Like, listen, the storyline itself was blah. I was trying to be like, when I was being critical, I literally just meant the specific thing of dedicating the match to those being bullied or whatever. People acted like just because you're a bigger kid, you couldn't have been bullied, back in the day or whatever. I'm like, okay, that's kind of silly, but okay. But yes, the storyline itself as a whole, don't really care. I mean, we joked about it a little bit off air, but all of the storylines in general, like, why aren't we leaning more towards like, I'd rather see takeover. The takeovers were more psyched about. They do a better storytelling line.
Here's the thing with me. I don't know why I don't watch NXT. I love every time I watch NXT. I love it. I've been listening to Busted Open Radio lately, and they feel the same way. But when I sit down for a takeover, I can figure it out. And maybe it's because I don't watch the stories that I don't know how the matches are, and I'm not super in sync with it, so I don't know how the matches are going to turn out. Maybe it's more exciting for me if I don't. Because, we can make our predictions for Mania, but I don't think we're qualified to predict TakeOver.
I mean, we could make predictions. I mean, but it's just more from the, like I said, we joked about it again, kind of off air. Like, are we in an era where you're better off not to watch the product, just watch the pay-per-views? I get, a friend of the show we were talking a little bit earlier today, and it was like, it's almost better. They're gonna give you a 3 to 4 minute recap of how they got to the match before the match, and you don't have to watch 4 weeks of product to get there.
Yeah, and this lead up has been kind of lame. But the matches will be fine for Takeover for Mania. Takeover is going to be. It's always more emotional. Okay, it's always more emotional. It's rawer. You're going to get guys that hate each other. You're going to get guys that were factions. Broke up. They started back. You get all this. It's going to get a lot of good violence, folks, and that's what we're going to get. We're going to see some stars made.
We keep saying this, and I think over the weeks, and I still think it to be true that NXT is the true alternative to WWE programming, wrestling or whatever.
Yes.
Overall, and that's why I think probably are more drawn to that. And when we watch it, we truly love it. And like I said, and the pay-per-views are done in a way that they're a little more old school, and that's probably why we enjoy them.
Yeah, I do. I'd rather watch that. The thing is, after Mania, I plan on being a Tuesday, Thursday night guy. Those are nights I'm really going to focus on watching wrestling. Everything else I'll watch if I can.
Right. But speaking of Mania, man, let's move along, because one of the things that everybody expects us to do, I guess, going into Mania is making some predictions. And guys, we're going to fully be honest with you here. We are not picking every single match. We picked a handful that we were either they were the big title matches or the big matches on the card or whatever, and we were going to pick those. And we're not going to go, even the funny part is we're not going to go into depth like huge. And by the way, we agreed on these. These were kind of what we talked ourselves into as far as both of us picking them. First and foremost, let's start. We're going to start and we're going to end with the title matches. The first one I say, so Lashley versus McIntyre. I mean, I'll let you pick the first one. Who you said?
I'm going with Lashley, because Lashley is terrific. And here's the really secret prediction: the Hurt Business breaking up is a work, because the Hurt Business couldn't be at ringside. But if they're not in the Hurt Business, they now can be at ringside, folks. It's going to be interesting. So look out for an angle there. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I just think it's time for Lashley to have a run. Yes. With the title. McIntyre had I know he dropped it there a little bit, but he pretty much essentially, 2020 was his year. So
yes, he was the champion during the vid. He's the vid champion. He did a great job carrying the company and keeping things going, but it's Lashley's time.
Yeah. The other match everybody seems to be super pumped about is Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair for the women's title over on SmackDown. Here's the funny thing. We read this article, right, where the betting odds favor the champions or whatever, and we're the other way, right?
No, this is going to be Belair's time to shine. She's going to get her belt. Sasha is going to do an amazing job putting her over, and she's going to be our new champion. Yay! I'm looking forward to the match. I really couldn't care about the finish.
Yeah.
The one match I'm really interested in seeing is the Bunny match.
I'm right there with you, man. Bad Bunny, Damian Priest, Miz and Morrison. Here's why. Like you said before, Miz and Morrison are the consummate professionals.
Yes.
They're safe, and they go out there and they do exactly what they're asked to do on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm full disclosure as to why I'm super psyched about this match is Damian Priest. Like, I want to see, I want him to have a moment. I want him to have a WrestleMania moment.
He's going to get his moment.
Out. Yeah.
He's going to get his moment. The Miz and Morrison are going to put everybody over. Then Miz is going to go make some TV. Morrison's going to go train with his wife in NXT. Bunny is going to fade back into music, and Damian Priest is elevated to another level.
If the spotlight is shining on Bunny so bright at Mania, you're hoping that spotlight, gets Damian Priest noticed as well.
Yes.
New Day and they're wrestling AJ Styles and Omos for the tag belts. I mean, look, AJ and Omos are winning because it was funny. A lot of people weren't thinking about it. Everybody's just saying like, oh, well, they're going to win because of XYZ. And I'm just like, look, dude, this is the only belt I think he needs for the Grand Slam Championship. So this is why they're going to win.
Has Omos been to Cornelia? I got to see him in some wrestling gear. Okay. What do you put a man that size in?
He wears his clothes.
But he's going to he's not wrestled. He's been wearing clothes. He's been street clothes. So I assume he's going to get some wrestling gear. I'm sure it's going to be very, very good gear because I know where he's probably going to get it. But it's going to be, this guy is probably going to be the person who benefits the most from Mania, this Omos fellow. He's going to get over with AJ Styles. They're going to be a tag team for a while. You know how it's break up, blah, blah, blah. This, AJ's a babyface again, blah, 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 blah. It'll still be fun to see how it works out.
I'm right there with you.
Braun and Shane, high spot. Big man wins.
Yep. Asuka versus Ripley. It's going
to be Ripley, and this is going to be a slobber knocker. This is probably going to be the hardest hitting match on the Mania card.
Here's the funny thing. This is the only match where I've waffled on our decision and said I think maybe Asuka hold on. Because I start looking at the card and going like, okay, I need so many champions to keep, so many to lose, kind of thing. But I'm sticking with Ripley. I'm not changing. But this would be the one I'd probably waffle the most on our pick. Of course, Randy Orton and The Fiend. Listen, they've burned him to the point that he was gone. He's got to get his payback, right? So
I'm only watching this for one reason, and I'm hoping it's Bo Dallas. Okay, I'll be honest. This match right here doesn't do shit for me. And even though they've probably built this storyline better than any storyline on the cards, I have no interest at all.
It's the longest built.
Yes.
As far as the storyline, as far as progressing. I'm actually enjoying this feud. Obviously, it's just I don't know why, but I am. Well, I probably know why, but But the Fiend, the Fiend is who I'm going with. Riddle and Sheamus. Look, we're going with Riddle just because we think he's fucking hilarious.
Oh, this guy, dude, the scooter bits. Even when he botches his lines, he's still hilarious. Last night on Raw, when he zoomed between Sheamus and Ali. Guys, this is good stuff. He's comedy gold.
Go back to
amazing.
Here's the funny thing. I blew Matt Riddle off in the back room of Landmark Arena because I was too busy talking to Ike Cross.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how much I think of Ike Cross, right? But that's but anyway, I think it's funny in hindsight.
It was in a meet and greet.
It was at a meet and greet.
You just weren't in the back room blowing people off.
No. I was back there doing a meet and greet for Matt Riddle. But Ike Cross was standing there, so I chose to talk to Ike Cross because I like Ike Cross. Big E and Apollo. Big E because he's Big E. I mean, I get it. Some people are going to say Apollo.
It's a Nigerian drum match.
I don't know. I guess we're going to find out, man. So who the hell knows?
There is no way this does not get criticized. There is no way they can save this. That's my humble opinion that this match is a negative. There's no way it's a positive.
Let's wait and see. That's all I'm going to say. Let's wait and see. Of course, the last one we're going to talk about is Edge, Roman, and see, I tricked you. I didn't put it on the notes because I wasn't going to give you who we picked. We didn't agree on a pick beforehand.
Oh, we didn't? No.
I did it on purpose to put you on the spot. Edge, Roman, and Daniel Bryan. Who you got?
Roman.
You're going Roman?
Roman in the story. I don't think there's any other way.
Here's the funny thing. I disagree, and I'm taking Edge.
He can't defend the title long term.
I say Edge because he doesn't have to beat Roman. He can beat Daniel Bryan and become.
I was trying to explain to somebody. Actually, I was talking to my stepson last night about this match, and it's like Daniel Bryan is there as a safety valve. Okay, he's going to protect somebody from not having to lose. If Edge is not 100, because Edge doesn't seem to 100% so far. Edge is not 100%. He can go in there and take it while Edge rolls out.
Yeah, Edge can powder and take a nap while Roman pounds on Damian for a little.
Bryan can submit Roman if he has to. I mean, they've set this up where anybody can win.
Correct.
Okay, he tapped Roman last week.
Here, I agree with, and this is the one match where I tell people, look, we all assume, I'm saying Edge, but we all assume Roman's going to win this match, right? So the push of Roman, we'll see.
Roman's going to always have the Uso kid in his pocket.
Here's the if, Jay. Here's the big if, and I've not said this to you at all. I intentionally saved this from being on air because I wanted to see your natural reaction.
Yes.
I'm gonna book a fantasy book, which we never do. I say Roman wins. I'm still sticking with my pick of Edge, by the way. Roman wins. He's standing in the middle of the ring, and guess who comes out to congratulate him? The Rock. And The Rock rock bottoms him and challenges him to WrestleMania next year in LA, which is where they say this match was probably going to happen if it's going to happen. And they build it 1 year, just like they did Cena and Rock for 1 year. And people are going to get sick to their stomachs when I tell you Roman carries that belt for 1 more year straight.
Wow. There's a lot there. There's a whole lot there. And I can see exactly why they're doing it with a Peacock, drawing The Rock. They've got The Rock coming back.
If you want to make an impact, The Rock makes an impact at WrestleMania on NBC, who basically, listen, I hate to be this guy, but after the dismal bomb that is the Young Rock, he owes NBC a favor because he took some money from them for that show.
I watched part of that the other night, and I thought it was pretty cool. It's not working.
Their ratings, yeah, and I get it. Look, we joke about the ratings, whatever. But when you're literally like at half or a quarter of where you started from, that ain't good. Look, I think the show's hilarious. By the way, I've watched it too, and I think it's funny. But just as a whole, it has not done well. It's one of the few things Rock has done that hasn't done like really well. So I jokingly said he owes them a favor. They should cash in, and if he's remotely thinking that match is happening next year, that's what we do. So.
And you totally outsmarted me because I was thinking you were going to say Brock Lesnar and they were going to start a problem with Paul. But
that could happen as well.
But you're a lot more in tune on this one than I am.
We'll
I
see.
guarantee you that this is going to be. If anything happens, it's going to be The Rock, not Brock.
Yeah. Now, we've looked into the future and just make some predictions. So now let's look back into the past. One of the things that we talked about a little bit off air was favorite matches of all times. We didn't want to do the Ultimate Card Show again. We've done that. That is back in the archives. So let's jump right in. So obviously we're going to tease a little bit here, right?
Yes.
Our favorite matches. And we had one honorable mention, and then we could only pick 3 that we had to go with. So I'm going to let you start with your honorable mention, and then we will work our way backwards.
Hogan, Mr. T, Pipe versus Piper and Orndorff at WrestleMania 1. Here's your first big celebrity match. Here's your time where Mr. T was a star, a big star. He was in boxing movies. He was on the A-Team. I mean, as a child, it was Mr. T, and you just went around, pity the fool, I pity the fool. I'm not good on there playing no fool. You walked around doing that as a kid because Mr. T was so effing cool. And so here you have him in a match. You got him with 2 great workers, Piper and Orndorff. This meant more, probably, not match-wise, but significance of how they book WB in the future. This was it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's sold enough that it made Mania successful.
Yes.
Which is why they're still a WrestleMania, to be honest with you.
Yes.
It's why they're still a WWE or WWF / now E. Mine, a lot of people are going to be disappointed that this literally is an honorable mention and it's not probably in a list. You saw the picture. It's Savage Steamboat. Some people consider it the greatest, wrestling match in WrestleMania history. I get it. I love the match, and I do have a soft spot in my heart for it. But it did not make my top 3, just because.
Doesn't have to.
No.
It doesn't have to. Because, I've said it again, work rate really doesn't mean a lot to the older guys. This was a match that while it is held up with some great significance as a match, we remember other things more. And my number 3 pick was Macho Man Randy Savage versus Hogan at 5. Because that was the breakdown of the mega powers. This storyline built and built and built and built. And it was a great story. And you got a decent match out of it. And that's why I think about that.
That thing built for from the summertime on almost. I mean, it was literally like, guys, this is a huge.
Lust in his eyes.
Exactly, man. I mean, this was back when storytelling was storytelling. They did a great job.
Doing a handshake.
Yep. and we were just all brokenhearted that they just collapsed. The Mega Powers exploded.
Yeah, your heroes
Mm-hmm.
just exploded.
Now that we're talking about how work rate doesn't matter, I'm going. I'm going. It was a TLC match: Dudley's, Hardy's, and Edge and Christian at Mania 17. Listen, it's arguably when any you see highlight reels, any of that stuff for WrestleMania, this match is always on there. It's always a spot from that match, and so it's probably the biggest car crash, moment when you go back in your memories.
Oh yeah, we hadn't seen a lot of stuff like this.
No, we hadn't seen anything like this when it happened.
This is moving parts. This is brutality. It's people taking bumps you never would have expected. This stole the whole show.
Absolutely, and then of course that's a far cry different than your second one.
Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch at 35. First time women main evented a WrestleMania. This was an epically solid match. You had wrestling, fighting, everything. You had flash. You had talent. Everybody in this match brought something very special to it, and it gave you. This was a fight. This was a legitimate fight. You felt it was a legitimate fight, and it was a profoundly enjoyable match.
Yeah, and this is the match. This one headlining, main eventing of WrestleMania is why there's even any conversation of Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks possibly headlining night one. That's what we're hoping.
Exactly.
Now, my number 2 is WrestleMania 25, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. On and on and on. We've heard me say, Shawn Michaels. This to me is probably the best wrestling match in the sense of that word ever at a Mania. It's funny to hear Shawn and Taker talk about it and say, we're not saying we had the perfect a perfect wrestling match, but if there ever was one, that's probably the closest one I've ever heard or been at, seen, whatever. And literally, if you go back and watch this match, I mean, it's one of the few matches that I can watch over and over and over. So much so the match was so great, I was like, oh, they had to do it again at 26.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which I felt like the second one wasn't as good as the first one, but that's just was personal opinion. It doesn't mean anything other than that. So, which of course leads to when we get into wrestling work rate, it's got to go to your number 1, right?
2 of the greatest wrestlers ever. Not Hogan and Andre at WrestleMania 3. I picked this one because so much build, so much spectacle, and this was the match that set me as a spectacle fan. This was a big build. This was Andre the frickin' Giant, Hulk Hogan, the biggest names in wrestling. No, you're not going to get a good match. Did we get drama? Yes. Did we get every single Hulk Hogan gimmick? Yes. Andre doing what he did in every other match? Yes, but it just worked so good. This was special, folks. You can say what you want to about Hulk Hogan now, but reason when Hulk Hogan was my hero as a child was this.
Oh yeah, he slayed the evil giant.
He slayed the evil giant. He was Mr. America. He was bigger than anything else on earth. God, those times, man, before you had to know your heroes were assholes.
And the funny thing is guess who's in my favorite matchup? Listen, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, this is not a shock. This is not a surprise. My favorite WrestleMania moment of all time is Rock Hogan at WrestleMania 18. It's the epitome of wrestling in the sense of it was all about emotion, it was all about feeling, and it was all about that crowd reaction.
Yep.
We've joked before, I think I've said on the show, if you think this match is great, watch it with no sound. It's freaking atrocious. It's a terrible, because as far as work rate goes, the match is so great because of how they control the crowd.
Yes.
That's what makes it great.
This was performance, and it was a beautiful performance. You can't see this without feeling moved, in my opinion. I loved it.
I agree with you, man. Listen, I love to ask questions. We always like to create conversation. I want to know, what are the listeners? What are their favorite WrestleMania matches? You can always at TappedOutPod on social media, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. You can email us, or of course, if you're watching the video, you can comment right below. What are your favorite Mania matches and why? That's always something I always like curiosity to know.
I heard this fascinating little conversation on Busted Open Radio yesterday, where they were discussing WWE asked for the top 3 pops of all time at Mania. And when you think about pops at Mania, how much bigger could you get than the Hardy Boys return when just things went nuts? That was not on there because Matt's in AEW. So thinking about that made me think about the fact that Stone Cold has Chris Jericho on directly after WrestleMania. Now, that's a bad time for me for it because it's going to be kind of at the tail of days and days of wrestling. But I'm going to have to watch, even though I have to work the next day. I'm going to have to watch this. Are we going to get the big revelations? Are we going to talk about AEW? We're not going to talk about AEW.
No.
I think the people that are tuning in to hear about Stone Cold talk about AEW are going to be disappointed. I think guys like us who are wanting to hear Chris Jericho and Stone Cold Steve Austin have a conversation are going to be super happy.
I think it'll be mentioned, but I don't think it'll be discussed, if that makes sense.
It'll be peppered in, but it's not going to be a huge topic.
Absolutely.
It's Vince.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
So, speaking of AEW, we did want to get into something. Something this past week happened, and couldn't be happier, right?
Yes. I like QT Marshall. I really do. I mean, if I hadn't met him personally, I still would like to watch him work. He's so good. He's just so good.
Here's the thing I try to tell people. So clearly, obviously, we met QT, right? And I always tell people like, oh, I like QT. I really do. But it's funny because he should be a heel. Why? Because his natural personality comes off like a heel, right?
Yes, he is very direct. He does not filter his speech as far as his opinion on things. But when it comes to wrestling, he's usually right. If you ask him why something didn't get over, he'll tell you, even if it hurts your feelings. I've seen it happen with wrestlers, and I've seen many wrestlers improve because of it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need a harsh coach.
That being said, obviously the big discussion was the turn last week, the fracture of the Nightmare family, and creating thus another faction in AEW. And I'm sitting here, we were discussing this a little bit, and we're like, good Lord, like AEW loves factions, right? I mean, I'm just going to rattle them off a little bit before I get into it. Cause think about this. You've got folks, before you go crazy, like we know there's more and we know there's others in the member, whatever, but best friends with Trent, Orange Cassidy, etc. Matt Hardy, we were just discussing, he's got Butcher Blade and Private Party now, and then Alley's involved. The Dark Order's been there from jump. Of course, the Inner Circle, is clearly, they've been at the top of the food chain there. Death Triangle with Pac and Lucha Brothers. Pinnacle's recently formed. Of course, a lot of people are like, oh, that's the New Horsemen. Sure. The Good Brothers and Kenny Omega running around creating havoc. Team Taz has been around for a while. Jurassic Express. And, of course, like I said, now here's the thing. QT has a stable, but is it two Nightmare Factor, families now, or is it just one?
Ooh. They need to put Leatherman's coats on them.
Give them colors?
No, QT could be like Kevin Sullivan, and they could do the Varsity Club. Think about it. How cool that would be, man. This would be QT's Varsity Club. I don't know. That's my little aside here, folks.
You wanted a Kevin Sullivan, saying.
Yeah, I like anything Kevin Sullivan's done. So I just think this has got potential. Those guys are legit athletes, right? They're not guys who just wanted to be wrestlers. These are guys who
no. You can look at those guys and tell they're like legit athletes, and dude, that one guy's just so massively huge.
He's
and
scary
it's I don't want to butcher his last name, but his name, I think, is Nick. Is his first name. That's easy, But he's like, dude. I guess the idea, the faction thing obviously it's not a new concept. It's been around with the Horsemen and then Dungeon of Doom. After that, of course you had the Heenan family and WWE. Like on and on and on. There was even like Paul Jones would have a stable in Mid-Atlantic, kind of thing. So again, not a new thing. But it's one of those concepts I think that gets brought, especially in a growth period. Like Attitude Era, we saw a lot, the early phases, we
Yes.
saw it. And I think the strength of it is what you hope happens is that the building of these groups, that somebody gets momentum and basically slingshots out of the faction as
Bingo.
the star.
Well, you got a huge roster. Okay, they have a huge amount of people signed. If you put them into factions, they get TV time, even if they're not wrestling matches. So it gets guys out there more. You get something going on. I think guys like Hobbs could cut, and Starks could shoot right out of Team Taz into major stars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think Matt Hardy working with the Private Party is the biggest thing could ever happen to them. Guys, this could benefit some people. These are some younger guys that are getting paired up with older guys who know what they're doing, have experience. These guys with QT now are going to be in a place to benefit hugely. It's a good time.
Yeah, I mean,
Very
it's
good time.
him and Cody, I think, are obviously going to get to run this Bruno Zabisco type angle. Do a good story with that. I think they'll do really well. And like I said, what I do like about it is, I know Dustin is involved, Billy Gunn's involved. But other than that, I mean, Cody and obviously QT, but a lot of the pieces around, like Lee Johnson and of course the guys that are with QT and, Billy Gunn's kid, I'm like, there's a lot of youth there that can benefit from this program and take them and like pull them up. And then, like you said, hopefully slingshot them forward into some, bigger, better things, especially if the whole angle's done correctly between QT and Cody, which I have no reason and they'll believe that it won't be done correctly.
Yes. I think this is good. It's a good opportunity for a lot of people. It's a good opportunity to show just how good the Nightmare Factory is.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. It's time, like I said, they can get the spotlight on some of the youth movement to try to develop some new stars.
Especially when they're being criticized for bringing in all these old WWE people.
That is true. So, it's kind of Sting pulling Darby along, bringing him along, stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of like, we're just curious, who do you think that's going to be, down the road. So, let us know who you think, because I wanted to know who the people in these factions, who do you think will slingshot out and be the star out of those. Let us know at tappedoutpod, tappedoutpod@gmail.com, and of course, comment right below if you're watching the video. But let's get it moving on, because hey, we were talking earlier. We saw the commercial, Viral Pros running. So let's get into some of the Georgia Indy Talk. And we talked about, like I said, the commercial earlier, Viral Pro. The cards, a lot of them, some of the things we're looking up for. The bad news is of Matt Sells is obviously he had to have surgery, so he's going to be out. Owen Knight will be facing a mystery opponent.
Ooh, I love a good mystery opponent.
Don't you, though? I mean, isn't that like the coolest thing when you always just don't know? The element of surprise is a cool factor for pro wrestling.
I hate breaking kayfabe. I hate learning what's going to happen at a show. I just like to see it as it goes. And this is so awesome. The reason I'm so glad to see Viral back, even though they're farther away from us than a lot of promotions, they are a straw that stirs the drink. They're somebody that's agitating. They're always agitating for position. They're always shaking things up, and that's good to have them in the mix, man. It's really good for Georgia Indie Wrestling to have these guys around.
Yeah, I like it when promotions are pushing. They're trying to be the best, and they're trying to be at the top, which causes everybody else to push to be better. Because if you don't, you just get passed by.
Yeah.
And that's one of, I think, Viral, their big push. We did want to talk, All-Star Special is going to be down there facing the Ducks, and I got a big maybe in my notes next to it. We'll discuss that a little bit more in a second when we get into the Southern Honor Show. But the one match that specifically that I'm super excited about. We're going to cover this next week as well, folks. By the way, it's kind of why I split it up over into 2 weeks. But one of the big matches I'm looking forward to, which is kind of, probably it might be a surprise to many, but John Davis versus Montana Black, dude, that is two just big old dudes that are going to get in there and throw down. And, I love I'm sarcastic. I throw around this, like all the guys talking about hoss fights and stuff like that. Like, this is one of those.
Yeah, this is going to be a slobber knocker.
100% agree with you there, man. That's just those two. I can't wait because I'm actually going to make this trip down there. I'm not sure if you're working or not, but I'm going to make that trip. So now let's discuss a little bit of what we did this past weekend. Southern Honor Wrestling. I made the haul up there. Unfortunately, you had to work, so I did it solo. But had some friends up there. Ted from PTL was up there. Praise the Lord in Buford. If you're looking for some good barbecue, there's a place to go in Buford.
It's barbecue for wrestling folks.
Absolutely. And of course, Billy and little Brookie came out as well. So I had some friends there, and of course Rob was there hanging out with me, amongst other things. The show, it's funny. It's Dylan was missed at the show. Dylan was not there. Todd filled in, kind of helped run everything while it was going on. I know a lot of people.
How scary is that they're working together?
Yeah. We'll get more into that. Todd had a great weekend, by the way. I was pointed that out in my notes for the next thing we're going to discuss. But it's cool to see they're working together and, like picking each other's brains, I'm sure. But this show in particular, it was funny because a lot of people were like, oh, my God, it wasn't the greatest show. And I'm like, it could have actually been one of their better shows when you think about it. There wasn't the one big moment that people went home necessarily like, oh, my God, holy shit, the big, but it was funny. They had a bunch of moments that happened along the way throughout the show, but they did a really good job of progressing the angles. All of it's like multiple angles and stories were progressed. So I always call these like storytelling shows.
Well, those are like the hardest ones to do, in my opinion. You can have a blow-off show anytime, but anytime you've got to do a show that's just going to push things along, those are the shows people get criticized the most for.
Right. Because everybody's like, well, nothing really happened. I'm like, no, the problem is a lot of things happened. You just didn't have the big blow-off moment, like you said. I mean, you're not putting, Corey Hollis through a ring, or you're not, those type of things. Yeah. But, it was like Gunner and Hollis, their story, their angle progressed a little bit. Obviously, David Ali and the Logan Creed, I know there for a while, it was like, oh, my God, they forgot all about that. No, they came back to it, folks. Give it time. Let that story play out. Listen, the fans going bananas for Honor Society and technical excellence proved to me that like people still can appreciate a very, very good match.
Yes.
And they did. They tore it up, and they went to a draw, and everybody just was like, I mean, literally, how many times have you ever heard the bullshit chant in the Action Building? And it wasn't because they were like the match was bad.
Yeah.
They were mad that they didn't get a winner and started the 5 more minutes chant because they wanted them to go some more. So they really stole the show. I mean, I know lots of good matches happened, but when you put Chip Day and Kyle Matthews as a team in any match, you're already starting with a leg up. And then Kingsley and Ryan have come a really long way.
Yeah.
And done some great things, in my opinion, especially at Southern Honor.
Mm-hmm.
So, listen, Ashton and Owen continued. Of course, now the thing I told you we would address from Viral. So Cyrus, wasn't about. He's injured his shoulder. He was pulling 18-wheelers or something, and he hurt his shoulder. Logan Chase had to get into the ring and actually had to have a match with Holden Beer Hansen, friend of the show, whom we absolutely love. Shout outs to our boy, because at the end of that, he was jumped and attacked by the Honor Society, and they did a number on his ankle. And if you've seen the pictures, go check it out on his Facebook page.
Oh, God.
Yeah, man. They wore his ankle out, and I'm concerned about how long he's going to be out, even to the point I'm worried about his match at Viral. So hopefully not,
Rest, ice, compression, and elevation.
Yeah.
Follow that.
We've recommended he go to see a doctor at hospital, but his pride's too strong, and that's just not who he is. He's one of those put a little dirt on it and he'll push through kind of guys, and it is what it is. But I mean, healed up, man. We don't want him to miss any more shows. Yeah. God, for mentioned Viral, much less even the next Southern Honor show, when something you would hope would come down. But they weren't the only show that crushed it this weekend, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Southern Fried. They ran what would look. I mean, it was funny. I kudos to those guys for getting the shows up super quick, because I did. We were here with kids for Easter, so I didn't get to go because we did our Saturday evening. So I didn't get to go to the show, which bummed me out.
And I wound up working until 8:30, so I did not get to go either. And I miss my all-time favorite professional wrestler, Mr. Drew Blood.
Yeah.
Hadn't seen him wrestle in 2 years. Yeah, I wasn't real happy. I mean, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just not happy that I didn't get to go.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've prayed, told myself, like, there's a match I want to see with Drew Blood in it, and I keep telling myself, I'm like, next time I see him, I'm going to pitch him this match because I want to see this match, like, very, very bad. I want to see this match, and I missed it too. I was bummed out. I'm like, it's funny, you ever in a moment where you're sitting there, you're going, having kids was a bad idea because it cost me a shot at seeing Drew Blood at Southern Fried. But anyway, like I said, I watched the show. I did get to catch it on Facebook, obviously. And it's just heat, man. Heat. Does anybody do it better than Todd? I mean, when it comes to heat, I don't know. That's a tough one to call.
Is Bill going to be okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not calling Bill old, but for a man of his age, he takes a hell of a lot of bad bumps, man.
He went through that table like nobody's business, like a champ. Kudos to Bill Behrens because I ain't doing that anymore. But, lots of craziness. Kudos. Like I said, Todd had a great weekend helping out up at Southern Honor. Then, of course, coming down and crushing it at the Felker Center in Monroe. They've got another show coming up in a couple weeks as well. The Battle Bowl, Lethal Lottery. So that's concept in general is crazy. So we're going to check out over the next couple weeks of how they're going to pull this one off. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
always love it.
Always love it. Speaking of things we love, guys, we always love it when you subscribe. Somewhere, anywhere, everywhere, whether that is Apple Podcast, iHeartMedia, Google Podcast, even Amazon Music, on and on and on. If you're more of the video, we are available on YouTube, of course. But anywhere you're subscribing, make sure you're giving us a 5-star rating and review. We greatly appreciate it. And then, of course, if that's not enough, you can check us over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod, where you get the shows early, where you get some extra bonus stuff. I started dropping a little something that I'm not going to tell you what they are unless you're a Patreon member. I started dropping that this week, and I promised the guys I'm going to try to do that every single week. It's a little bit of something extra. And like I said, I'm going to keep it a secret that you can only find at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. We always greatly appreciate anybody and everybody who's willing to put a little hard work or money down for us. And even if that means going and getting your shirt at prowrestlingtees.com, getting one of those shirts, because I have a challenge to our fans. Anybody who can buy one of those shirts and sport that shirt and look as good as Diana Michelle can, take those pictures, I might start having some giveaways for some shows.
Yeah.
So I had bought this for another project, and I'm going to show it off a little bit here. So these were some trading cards that I was going to do for another project, and I've contemplated a changing my mind, and I'm thinking this box has 3 guaranteed autographs in it. And I'm going to leave it at that for this week. I'm probably going to go ahead and bust this box open instead of doing packs and start giving away some of these autographed cards.
Ooh.
So contests could be coming. Keep that in mind. And I'm not really sure what contest I'm going to run, but that one sounded like one, didn't it?
Sure did sound like one.
So people start getting the shirts, put it on your social media, share it, tag us in it at Tapped Out Pod, by the way, on all forms of social media. That's where you would find us, whether it's on the gram, whether it's on the book, whether it's on the Tweeter machine. I want to start seeing some at Tapped Out Pod with some gear on. And maybe when one strikes me fancy, I'll see what autographs I pull. Matter of fact, I'll open this box up and I'll put it up on our Facebook and on our other social media.
Ooh.
And maybe let you know what can be won and and I'll get them shipped out to you if you impress me enough with your thing. Diana Michelle might be due for one anyway.
Yeah.
So kudos and shout out again to her for the promotions, and we appreciate that greatly. Anything else for you got, man?
No, it's the night we're recording, it's Hall of Fame night. I got time to go on a beer run and be back here in time to crack a cold one and watch the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, man, it's Hall of Fame, and that's something we're always looking forward to. But man, but you're right. We need to wrap up if we're gonna get up there and get the Hall of Fame in. So what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.